Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in October, and it was a really slow reading month for me, and I actually went down a rabbit hole of just reading contemporary, high school books, romance, that I'm not even going to talk about. I'm ashamed of myself. So anyway, I do have some books that I read, and I do kind of have a DNF. I'm not sure if I'm going to finish it. I tried to wrap it up. I'm actually filming the last day of October right now. So it's Halloween. Happy Halloween. And I'm struggling with this book. So I'll tell you about it and you'll see if it ends up in my November list. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first book that I read was called The Story of How We Met. And this is actually a short story or a novelette that the author reached out to me on Instagram and asked me, if I wanted to read. I don't know her. This wasn't a paid review. She didn't ask me, other than she did ask me, what did you think of it? But yeah, she didn't say, please give my book a good review. She seemed really nice, and I just was interested in the story. So this was a contemporary teenage romance. It is a very short story, kind of introducing you to this family that then she's going to write more books about. So I thought it was good. It did seem like it was, it's her first, her debut novel or short story. And I did think she did a good job of portraying high school, especially the emotions of that age. I do think it's really hard to portray that accurately. Either people, really want high schoolers to all be gorgeous, rich, that's just not the way it is. Or they go the other way and everything is such a stereotype, stereotypical jock, stereotypical this. So I did think that overall she did a good job of showing the emotions of a high schooler and kind of putting me back in that, oh yeah, remember how high school was and how everything was so intense for whatever reason, those raging hormones. So yeah, I did think it was good, and that was the first book I read in October. And then I read, let's see, okay, so Pandemonium. This book was good, and actually I did really enjoy it, and it was something that, really gripped me from the beginning. I thought, oh, this is a very interesting story. That did have a few slow parts, but overall I was pretty entertained. So this is falling into the category, and I'm going to do a whole video on this, of the magical circus or paranormal circus books. And this would be Caraval, however you say it. I read another one called The Book of Shade. There's, stuff with, I don't think the night circus is necessarily in the same, but you get the idea. There's a lot of these books that bring in this paranormal nighttime circus that is, seems to be a developing, kind of trope that we're gonna have to deal with. So I did like this book. I felt like it brought in that aspect, but also had some elements of other things. Kind of gave me almost a Phantom of the Opera-ish vibe too, and I did enjoy it. It starts out, and this is not a spoiler, this is on the back cover, the main character goes to this circus as a little girl and witnesses a murder, and then years later the circus comes back, and it's at a time when there's a lot of issues going on in the country, and the circus is back, and she's just doesn't know what to do, if she should go, and what is going to happen now that things are kind of going crazy around her. And then she's got to deal with this reemergence of this circus where she witnessed this very traumatic event. And it was interesting. I did like it. There is, there's romance, there's political intrigue. I did think it was pretty well done for what it is. I will say, comparing it to others, it did do some things well. I did think it had some very good, the supernatural elements were very interesting. The magic was interesting, and it brought in some other elements that I was surprised, because it definitely got into some lore of its own. It created its own world pretty well. So I thought Pandemonium was pretty good. It is part of a series, and the only issue I had with it is that I didn't necessarily feel compelled to read the next book. So I'm not sure that I'm saying that this should have been a standalone, but much like Caraval, it kind of made me feel like maybe I do just want one book out of this, because I did feel like it wrapped itself up pretty well, and I did like the conclusion, but that doesn't mean I won't read the second book. That's just my feelings for now. Okay, and then the next book that I read was The Will in the Wild. And I'm sorry, these were all ebooks. I'll put them up. The Will in the Wild, or The Will in the Wilds. The Will in the Wilds. And this book, I do know, have read some stuff by this author before. I'm trying to remember her name, but well, it's here. So this is a book about fae, and I did like this. And I don't know that they're even called fae. I think they're called something else, but a fae-like creatures. And the main character ends up making a deal with a fae, and then he gets stuck on like this side of the, like there's like the kind of like how fae usually come from their own realm. He gets stuck on this side, and he starts to deteriorate because they can't stay here. And she's kind of stuck in this, well, we've made this bargain, he's here, what do I do? And I did like it. I liked it a lot. I think this author is a good writer. She wrote Paper Magician, which I also really enjoyed. Kind of getting back into the whole magician stuff. But I did like this book a lot, and I thought that the characters were well done. I liked the interesting world she set up, and I felt like it was, it had enough background to the character that you really felt for her. She's really been very negatively affected by these creatures being able to cross over into her realm. Her mother was killed by them. Her dad actually crossed over to the realm to get her a stone of protection so that she'll know when they're coming. And that caused him to have some problems. So it's just like, it was a really well put together story, and I would definitely recommend. Okay, so then I read All That Stands Between Us, and this is by Annette K. Larson. And I like this book. This is definitely not my genre. I don't read a lot of contemporary romance, but this is a clean contemporary romance, and I did enjoy how the story was done. This is a modern take on Romeo and Juliet, and these two families had an issue, where they basically grew up together, were very close, and then split apart because of a feud, an issue that happened with them. And then the daughter and son of these two families, fall in love, and it was really cute. It actually too would work for the holidays because it starts out with her going back for Thanksgiving and then Christmas, and her time with her family is very strained because she's starting to develop feelings for this boy that's like forbidden. But I thought it was really well written, and I thought the relationship was cute. And I've not read a lot of Romeo and Juliet retellings. In fact, I don't think I've ever read one besides this. But I do like it, and I have read, a lot of Shakespeare in college. So I did think that the way that she put it together, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But it wasn't like she pulled everything right out of Romeo and Juliet. This is not like the, Baz Luhrmann, Romeo and Juliet with, modern, but, the language of Romeo and Juliet. This is just a loose retelling and in modern times. And I thought it was good. There's obviously like some silliness, and it's like that contemporary romance. Like, would that really happen? Probably not, but overall, very cute story. And I would recommend. Okay. So the last book is probably going to be the biggest controversial one, and that's The Wicked Deep by Shea Earnshaw, I believe is how the author's name. So I have a lot of problems with this book. I read this as an October read. It's a spooky read, and I'm not going to get into very many spoilers right now, but I will just give you the brief overview. So there are these witches that were killed in this town hundreds of years ago, and they were unjustly killed, and so every year they come back and they possess girls from the town. There's 3 of them. Possess 3 girls, and then they lure boys to their death by drowning them. And this happens every year, and this is the town's penance because they unjustly killed these witches years ago. And they're not really witches, but like I said, I'm not going to get into spoilers too much right now. So that's the basic idea. We start out with a girl who lives in this town. She's always lived there. It's actually like an island kind of situation, which I will talk about. And she runs the lighthouse with her mom, and she's very tragic. She's had a lot of bad things happen to her. And there's a boy who comes to the town and doesn't know the lore and the issues, and she kind of feels for him because he's being drawn in at this time where the drownings are about to start happening. It's every summer they come back, and the drownings happen, and then they go away, and then they come back. So that's the basic overview of this book. The witches come back, they possess the girls don't know they've been possessed, and life goes on after the end of summer. So now I'm going to talk why this book didn't work for me. I would not recommend. And I'm going to say trigger warning, which I never do because I don't usually talk about books that require trigger warnings. But I am going to say if, issues of consent and dubious consent and assault, or in my understanding of how I view this book, rape, bother you, then please don't continue watching. And if you don't want to know spoilers for The Wicked Deep, also don't continue watching. So, as I've established, this book starts off with a girl living in this town, and the witches are about to return. And she meets a boy who is new in town, and they've kind of both got their secrets, but the main focus is right now that these witches are going to return. And I'm going to say witches, they aren't really witches. The whole thing is that back in the day, they were mistaken as witches because they were basically these beautiful women who seduced all the men in the town, and the women kind of took it out on them and said, oh, they must be witches. And they don't help themselves, and we see flashbacks of this. They don't help themselves because they go in and say, one night they all get drunk and one of them starts going, yeah, I'm putting a curse on you, and I'm putting a curse on you. And I feel like the author really wants us to feel that society, oppresses women, and we're supposed to feel bad for them when I don't. It was sad and tragic that what happened to them, but also then they come back and murder people. So it's a very convoluted message, and I didn't feel like there was that feminist aspect was done well, and I will continue to explain. So the main character, the first night, meets the boy. She invites him back to the lighthouse to work there because she's, concerned for him. And major spoiler, after that first night, she is then possessed by a witch named Hazel. The youngest, I believe, of the three. So I guessed this very early on. There is a scene where she's looking at herself in the mirror and she says something about not meeting her eyes in the mirror. Well, it made perfect sense to me that the only reason the author would include the fact that she's not looking at herself is if she knew that she was possessed, because she would see herself, her true self, in the mirror. Because Hazel, of course, being one of the witches, can see her sisters once they've taken over other people's bodies. So I guessed this very early on, and I was hoping I was wrong because I did not, with the way that the book went, I was really uncomfortable with this aspect. So she's possessed early on by Hazel, but the main character, her name's Penny, she continues to go about her life. Her and the boy have a relationship that develops, and she eventually tells him, yeah, I can tell you that these two other girls are possessed by so-and-so and so-and-so. I don't remember the other girls' real names. But there's a lot of stuff that happens in this town. They end up seeing one of the girls coming up out of the water after she had drowned two boys, and so they, of course, grab her. And this is problematic because she is possessed by this other witch, but she is a different person. Her body is just being used. She's just being used for this purpose. But if they kill her, they're still killing off this person that's innocent. So there's a lot of problems with that, and a lot of drama that happens. But my main issue with this book was that Hazel, possessing Penny's body, has a sexual relationship, and I believe it's pretty much a fade to black situation. It's not graphic, but with the main character, the boy. I don't even remember his name, sorry. I'll put it here. And no. No. This is a big issue for me because we find out later that this witch, Hazel, had taken over. This is the third year that she's taken over Penny's body. And she also is responsible for Penny's dad being missing. Inadvertently, but she did kill him. And she's also responsible, I think the boy's name is Beau. I'll put it like I said. But she's also responsible for his brother's death. So, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. But yeah, not a good person. But she has feelings for this guy, and she sleeps with him. And she has taken over Penny's body. And that's a real problem for me because Penny is being used. And Penny, for all we know, was a virgin before Hazel took over her body and could never consent to this act, but it's her body being used. And that really bothered me, especially with this being a female author, that she would put that in there, that Penny would have no idea. She would wake up later and have no clue that she'd basically been raped. She can't consent. She doesn't know this boy. They've had one interaction, but her body has, I mean, she's been with him. That's pretty disturbing. And I feel like why this bothered me so much is that the author really tries to make you feel for Hazel. And the fact that she's had a very hard life. When she was alive, her story was very tragic. But Hazel has every intention of continuing to live in Penny's body and not letting her, like not going back to the water as she does every year. She wants to live and take over, and she's already ruined Penny's life. She's been responsible for Penny's father's death. She has taken over her body 3 years in a row, and Penny has just been used as her vessel. And we don't know, it's kind of implied that the women do seduce the men that they lure into the water, so we don't know if this is the first time that she's done something like this in Penny's body. But Penny has no consent over this and would have no memory of it. But might know, hey, I'm not a virgin anymore. And would have, like, can you imagine how traumatic that would be that she wouldn't know that? And I just felt like it was so awful and off-putting to the story that I couldn't. I really did not like this book for that aspect, because at the end, major spoiler, Hazel does go into the water. She drowns herself again, and Penny's body comes back, and Hazel is gone. And Penny, is with this guy she doesn't really know, but, at the end it kind of implies that they're starting to fall for each other, which also made the love story real weak. I mean, bad enough as it was, but it made it seem like, the guy was just, like, that Penny and Hazel are interchangeable. And no, once again, not good. I didn't like this book at all. I felt like it would have been much better as a straight horror, because for me it was pretty horrific. I think if it would have gone the way of making Hazel a evil person, I would have liked it better. And I would have appreciated the horror aspect of it, because it's a horrifying read when you think about it. These girls are being taken over, and they have no way to stop it. And the boys are then being lured to their deaths. And like I said, Hazel had killed the main character's brother. I'll look it up. I think it's Bo. So Bo is the main male character, and he actually had come to the town knowing about these drownings, and his brother had drowned previously, and he knew it wasn't a suicide and like all this stuff. So he came, and we find out that Hazel was actually the one who killed his brother. So Hazel, up until this point of Bo finding this out, had every intention of taking over Penny's body and staying and being with Bo. But one of her sisters, one other witches, reveals what happened, says, hey, she killed your brother, and of course then Bo can't be with her. Yeah. So she ends up going back and letting Penny return. So yeah, that's the plot. I did not like this book at all. Also, this book is set in an area that I know very well, because I'm from the state that this book claims to be set in, and this town is completely made up. This does not exist. So, and at least in my understanding of where I live, I was like, she adds in places that I would know, and then I was like, but this island, as far as my understanding, does not exist. So it was kind of weird to me, because it's a little bit off-putting where I'd be like, wait, what? Where is this? Minor issue. But I did not like this book, and I would not recommend. If you like horror, I would say go for a straight horror. If you like spooky, I would go for something that's actually spooky. I actually found this book to be extremely off-putting, and only a few changes would have made it better. I would have appreciated if Hazel would have never slept with Bo, obviously, and Penny's body. That would have been a huge difference in the book to me. But once that happened, I couldn't get behind the whole relationship at all. And also, if the author would have used this as a straight horror and made Hazel the villain, I would have agreed with what happened to her. She should have died, and I think it would have been better. But it's the blurring of the line between, okay, well, doesn't she deserve love? No, she doesn't. Sorry. Penny can in no way consent to this, and I felt like, as the author was trying to kind of input some feminist issues, I felt like that was something that she should have recognized as being very, very problematic. So those are my thoughts on all the books I read in October, and please let me know your thoughts and what you've been reading, and talk to me in the comments. Please like and subscribe. It helps me out so much. Hope to talk to you soon.